A single father. A newborn left to die on a frozen roadside on Christmas Eve. A crumpled note that said, "Unwanted." And a town too busy celebrating to notice one tiny life slipping quietly toward the dark. One man's decision to stop when everyone else drove past would shatter everything he thought he knew about family, sacrifice, and what it really means to save a life. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. The cry cut through the December air like a knife. Liam Hart checked his rearview mirror and eased his car onto the shoulder of Pine Hollow Road, 4 miles outside town. His breath fogged in front of his face as he lowered the window. The Christmas music on the radio faded into an eerie, muffled silence. He'd just left the 24-hour pharmacy, a plastic bag on the passenger seat full of last-minute stocking stuffers, the candy canes his daughter, Lily, loved. The little paint-by-numbers kit she'd been staring at in the store window. The glittery nail polish she thought he hadn't noticed. It was 5:42 a.m. on Christmas Eve. The sun hadn't climbed over the horizon yet. The world was that strange blue-gray that only exists on winter mornings. When night hasn't quite let go, Liam had left early on purpose, to beat the holiday rush, to make sure everything was ready before Lily woke up. But then he'd heard it. That sound, a thin, desperate cry coming from somewhere beyond the edge of the road. He frowned, listening. The wind rattled through the bare trees lining the ditch. His engine hummed. Far off, a dog barked. Then he heard it again. Not a cat. Not a fox. Not branches scraping in the wind. Something alive. Something human. Liam's stomach dropped. He pulled fully onto the shoulder and flipped on his hazard lights. With shaking fingers, he grabbed his phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped out into the biting cold. The cry came again, softer this time. Weaker. His beam swept across frost-crusted grass, an old fast food cup, a crushed soda can. The ditch sloped down into a shallow embankment, choked with dead weeds and fallen branches. Then his light caught on something that didn't belong. A bundle of dirty fabric, half buried in the dead grass about 15 feet down the embankment. For a split second, Liam's brain refused to understand. Then the bundle moved. His blood turned to ice. "No," he whispered. The word vanished into the cold. "No. No, no." His body moved before his mind could catch up. He half ran, half slid down the embankment, shoes skidding on frozen dirt. It was a baby. She couldn't have been more than a few months old, wrapped in what looked like a thin, stained towel, utterly wrong for December. Her face was pale, lips tinted blue. She wasn't really crying anymore, just making small, broken sounds, like a kitten that had used up all its strength. Liam dropped to his knees. The frozen ground soaked into his jeans, but he didn't feel it. His hands trembled as he leaned in. That's when he saw the note. It was folded and tucked clumsily into the corner of the towel, written on the back of a gas station receipt in shaky handwriting, "Unwanted." Nobody wants her. I can't do this anymore. Please, just let this be over. The words punched the air out of his lungs. How long had she been here? All night? Since midnight? The forecast had warned the temperatures would drop into the low 20s before dawn. It was a miracle she was still breathing. "Hey, hey, little one," Liam murmured, his voice cracking. I've got you. He carefully gathered the baby into his arms. She was impossibly light. When his fingers brushed her exposed skin through the towel, he flinched. She was so cold it hurt to touch her. Her arms moved sluggishly, her mouth opening and closing with no real sound. Liam stripped off his coat and wrapped it around her, pulling her tight against his chest, desperate to share any warmth he had left. His hands were shaking, not just from the cold, but from the terrible realization that this child had been left here to die on Christmas Eve. While the town slept under twinkling lights and garlands, while people dreamed of gifts and full tables and family, someone had carried an infant out to a frozen roadside, left her in a ditch, and walked away. Liam fumbled his phone out of his pocket with numb fingers. Keeping the baby pressed against him with one arm, he fought his way back up the embankment and into the car. He cranked the heat as high as it would go and dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? I found a baby, Liam blurted. His voice didn't even sound like his on Pine Hollow Road, about 4 miles west of town. She's alive, but she's ice cold. I don't know how long she's been out here. Please, you have to hurry, please. The dispatcher's voice was steady and calm, guiding him through the questions. Was she breathing? Yes. Responsive? Barely. She's so weak. Any visible injuries? I don't see any. She's just cold. Please, just come. Sir, keep her warm, the dispatcher instructed. Hold her against your chest. Keep talking to her. Help is on the way. Liam hung up and sat there in the driver's seat with the heater blasting, his coat wrapped tight around the baby, her tiny face pressed against his sweater. You're okay, he whispered, more to himself than to her. You're safe now. I've got you. No one's going to leave you again. Do you hear me? But doubt gnawed at him. Her breathing was so shallow. Her skin looked translucent, like paper. Every time her eyelids fluttered closed, a jolt of panic shot through his chest. Hey, stay with me, he begged, gently rubbing her hands between his palms. Come on, sweetheart. Stay with me. You're not done yet. Not tonight. As he held her, something shifted inside him. Something old and familiar and painful. He knew abandonment. He knew what it meant to be left behind. 3 years earlier, his wife had set a note on their kitchen counter and walked out. Lily had been 5. The note had been short. Cold. Final. I can't do this anymore. Don't call me. No explanations. No goodbye to their daughter, just gone. The months that followed had nearly broken him. Working double shifts, cooking burnt dinners, reading bedtime stories, barely awake, trying to answer questions a 5-year-old should never have to ask, why doesn't Mommy want us? Did I do something wrong? The guilt, the shame, the feeling that he had failed as a husband and a father. It came back in a rush now, sitting in that frozen car with someone else's baby shivering in his arms. This little girl hadn't done anything to deserve this. She hadn't asked to be born. She hadn't earned a note that said unwanted. Just like Lily hadn't done anything to earn a mother who disappeared, Liam held her closer, his throat tight. You're wanted, he whispered. I don't care what that note says. You are wanted. You matter, you hear me? For a second, her gray-blue eyes cracked open. They were unfocused, searching, but when they landed on his face, something unseen passed between them. Sirens wailed in the distance. Red and blue lights painted the interior of the car. An ambulance rolled to a stop behind him, followed by a police cruiser. Paramedics yanked open the door. A woman with silver-streaked hair and kind eyes knelt at the edge of the seat. Sir, you did the right thing, she said quietly. Let's get her inside where we can warm her up properly. Liam's arms tightened on instinct. Then he forced himself to loosen his grip. He handed the baby over, watching her disappear into a cocoon of thermal blankets and professional hands. Another paramedic checked Liam for injuries. He barely heard the questions. Then a police officer approached, a woman in her 40s with sharp dark eyes and a firm jaw. Mr. she prompted. Hart, Liam Hart. I'm Officer Dana Ruiz, she said. I need you to walk me through what happened. He told her. The early morning pharmacy run. The cry in the dark. The bundle in the ditch. The note. Officer Ruiz photographed the receipt, sliding it into an evidence bag. Her jaw clenched as she read the shaky writing. "Most people would have kept driving," she said finally. "Figured it was an animal. Or just turned the music up. You stopped. You saved that baby's life." Liam shook his head. "I just heard her. I couldn't ignore it." Officer Ruiz's voice softened. "It's Christmas Eve, Mr. Hart. Today, you gave someone a miracle." At the hospital, time blurred. The bag of stocking stuffers sat forgotten on the passenger seat of his car in the parking lot. Liam didn't remember walking into the emergency department or sitting down in a hard plastic chair in the waiting room. He just knew his hands wouldn't stop shaking. He should call someone. He should text Lily. She was at home, safe with Mrs. Carter from next door, who had agreed to sleep over so he could run out early. But every time he pulled his phone from his pocket, he saw the note again in his mind. Unwanted. A nurse with kind eyes approached, scanning the waiting area until her gaze found him. "Mr. Hart?" she asked. "The baby you brought in, she's stable. You got to her just in time. Another hour out there." She let the sentence trail off. Liam exhaled shakily, closing his eyes. "She's hypothermic and dehydrated," the nurse continued, "but there's no sign of frostbite or permanent damage. We're warming her slowly. She's a fighter." Mrs. Carter squeezed his arm as she passed. "I'll let you two talk. I'm just next door if you need anything. And Liam, I'm glad you're okay." After she left, Liam and Lily sat together on the couch. He told her about the early morning run, about the cry on the road, about finding a baby alone in the cold. He left out the worst of it. But Lily was 8, and 8-year-olds are sharper than people give them credit for. "Is the baby okay?" she asked quietly. "She's going to be," he said. "The doctors are taking care of her." "Why was she by herself?" Lily asked. "Where's her mom?" The question hit him like a punch. He swallowed. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Sometimes grown-ups make choices that don't make sense. That hurt people. You remember when your mom left?" Lily's face changed in the way it always did when they brushed against that memory. She nodded slowly. "This baby's mother left her too," Liam said, "but she's too little to understand. She needs people to look after her, to make sure she's safe." "Like how you take care of me," Lily said. He smiled, throat tight. "Yeah, like that." Lily fell quiet, thinking. Then she said the simplest, truest thing he'd heard in a long time. "It's Christmas Eve," she murmured. "Nobody should be alone on Christmas Eve, especially a baby." That night, after cookies were baked and presents were wrapped and the Polar Express had played in the background just like it did every year, Lily fell asleep under her favorite blanket, exhausted from sugar and emotion. Liam stood by the front window, looking out at the snow-dusted street, fingers turning Maggie's card over and over. He thought about Grace in that hospital room, about fluorescent lights and white sheets and machines, about the nurses doing their best in an overworked system. She was safe, warm, monitored, but she was alone. His phone was in his hand before he realized he'd dialed. "Maggie Allen," came the voice on the other end. "It's Liam Hart," he said, "from this morning." "I thought I might hear from you," she said gently. "How are you holding up?" "How is she?" he asked, skipping the question. "Grace is doing well," Maggie said. "Her temperature is normal. She's eating. The doctors are impressed. She's stronger than she looks." "Is anyone with her?" he asked. "Like, sitting with her?" "The nurses check on her regularly," Maggie said. "She isn't alone." But they both knew what he meant. Silence hummed between them. "Mr. Hart," she said after a moment, "may I ask, why are you really calling?" Liam stared at his reflection in the dark glass. "Because I can't stop thinking about her," he admitted. About that note, about how someone decided her life didn't matter, and because I know what it feels like to be left behind. He hesitated. What happens after she leaves the hospital? He asked. You said emergency foster care. Will she be with someone who actually wants her? Someone who will fight for her? I wish I could promise that, Maggie said sadly. Most foster parents are good people, but the system is overwhelmed. Kids move from one home to another while we sort out the legal side. It's better than the streets, but it's not what any child deserves. What if she didn't have to be moved around? He said before he could stop himself. What if she came here, with us? Maggie went very quiet. That's a big question, Mr. Hart, she said at last. Becoming a foster parent is not a simple step, especially for a single parent with a young child. I know, he said. I know. But what would I have to do? The process takes months, she said carefully. Applications, background checks, home inspections, training classes, court approvals, and even if you were licensed, there's no guarantee Grace would be placed with you. We have protocols. But it's possible, he pressed. It's possible, she admitted. But I need you to be honest with yourself. Why do you want to do this? Liam leaned his forehead against the cool glass of the window. Because I know what it's like to be abandoned, he said. My wife left 3 years ago. Lily still has nightmares. She still wonders if her mom is coming back. And today I held a baby whose first message from this world was a note that said, nobody wanted her. I can't stand that. If there's something I can do to change that for her, how do I walk away from that? That's honest, Maggie said softly. But it's not enough by itself. You can't save Grace to fix your own hurt, or Lily's. That wouldn't be fair to any of you. I know, he insisted. It's not just that. When I found her, it felt like I was supposed to. Like if I hadn't gone that way, if I hadn't left early, she would have died. It feels like more than coincidence. That's not crazy, Maggie said. But feelings fade. Paperwork doesn't. Court hearings don't. Sleepless nights don't. Foster care is hard. Liam, harder than you think. You could pour your heart into that baby and still watch her leave if a relative comes forward. I understand, he said, but I still want to try. Not to be a hero, just because she deserves someone who won't disappear. On the other end of the line, he could hear Maggie exhale. Call my office after the holiday, she said at last. I'll email you the forms and training schedule, but promise me something. What? Don't do this because you feel guilty, she said. Do it because you are willing to commit, no matter how this ends. Grace deserves someone who won't walk away when it gets hard. I won't, he said quietly. If I start this, I'm all in. An hour later, Liam found himself walking down the quiet hallway of the pediatric ward again. The night nurse looked up from the station, surprised. Mr. Hart, she said, everything okay? I know visiting hours are long over, he said, but it's Christmas Eve, and I couldn't stop thinking about her. I didn't want her to spend it completely alone. The nurse studied his face for a beat, then smiled. You're the one who found her, she said. Come on, 10 minutes. Don't tell anyone I let you in. Grace was awake, watching the mobile above her bassinet with solemn eyes. When Liam stepped into the room, she turned her head toward his voice. Hey, Grace, he whispered. I know it's late, but I thought I'd come say goodnight. He sank into the chair beside her bed. For the next hour, he talked. He told her about Lily, about their silly Christmas traditions, about burning the first batch of cookies every year, about how the tree always leaned a little to the left, no matter how many times they fixed it. He told her about learning to be both mom and dad at once, about crying in the pantry the night his wife left, then wiping his eyes before Lily saw him. I don't know what's going to happen, he admitted, his hand resting lightly on the edge of the bassinet. Her fingers curled around his again, I don't know if they'll ever let me bring you home, but I promise you something. You are not unwanted. Not anymore. Not as long as I'm breathing." Grace made a tiny sound, somewhere between a sigh and a soft coo, her eyes fixed on his face. "Merry Christmas, Grace," he whispered. "Whatever happens next, this is not the end of your story. It's just the beginning." The process that followed was just as brutal as Maggie had warned. There were background checks that combed through every corner of his life. Financial statements to prove he could support another child. References from his boss, his neighbors, Lily's teacher, even his ex-in-laws. There were home visits where Maggie walked through every room in their small 3-bedroom house in Willow Creek. Checked the smoke detectors, measured the crib, asked questions about discipline, routines, childcare plans. "You'll need to convert the spare room into a nursery," she said on her second visit. "Outlet covers, cabinet locks, proper sleeping arrangements, no clutter near the crib." "Lily and I already made a list," Liam said. "She drew a picture of where she wants the crib." Maggie's pen paused. "How is Lily handling this?" she asked. "She's had you to herself for a long time. This will change everything for her, too." "We talk about it," he said. "She's scared sometimes. She asks if I'll still have time for her, if I'll love both of you the same. I tell her the truth, that there will be days it's hard that babies cry at 3 a.m., that she'll have to share more. But she also can't stop talking about being a big sister." He smiled faintly. "She wants to teach Grace how to draw," he added, "and how to make sprinkle pancakes without burning them." The training classes were the hardest. Liam sat in a beige conference room with other would-be foster parents and listened to instructors talk about trauma and attachment disorders, about how early abandonment rewires a child's brain, about how some kids leap into your arms and others flinch away from every touch. "Half of you won't make it through the first year," one instructor said bluntly. "Not because you're bad people, but because this is harder than you think. Foster care will break your heart. Over and over. You have to go in knowing that, and choosing to do it anyway." More than once, Liam found himself standing in the parking lot after class, staring at his car, thinking about walking away. He could keep his life the way it was. Just him and Lily. He could send a donation to some charity, tell himself he'd done what he could. Then he'd remember the ditch, the snow, the note, and he'd show up for the next class. He saw Grace every time he was allowed to. At first, the visits were short and supervised in a cozy room at the agency with a worn rug and mismatched toys. Grace stayed with an experienced foster mother named Joanna while the paperwork crawled through the system. By the time Lily met her, Grace had filled out. Her cheeks were round, her gaze sharper, her tiny hands reached for everything. "She's so much bigger than in the pictures," Lily breathed the first time she saw her. Joanna laid Grace on a blanket on the floor, and Lily sank down beside her. "Hi, Grace," she said softly. "I'm Lily. I'm going to be your big sister." For an hour, Liam watched his daughter sing lullabies, make faces, gently take Grace's hand and wiggle her fingers. When they had to say goodbye, Lily clung to him in the parking lot, crying. "Why can't she come home now?" she asked. "We have a room ready. We have clothes. Why does it take so long?" "Because the people in charge want to make sure she goes to the right place," he said, hating how weak the answer sounded. "That whoever takes care of her can give her everything she needs." "We can," Lily insisted. "We can." "I know," he said. "We just have to keep showing them that." On the drive home, she stared out the window for a long time. Then she said quietly, "Mom left because she didn't want to be a mom anymore. But Grace's mom left her too. And Grace didn't do anything wrong. Nobody should leave a baby." Liam swallowed hard. "No," he said. "Nobody should." "So we have to show her that some families stay," Lily said simply. that some people don't leave when it's hard. Out of the mouths of children. 6 months after that Christmas Eve, Maggie showed up at their front door holding a manila folder and a tired but hopeful smile. "We've reached the end of the investigation," she said as Liam poured coffee and tried not to shake. "No one has come forward. No relatives have surfaced. No DNA matches. Given how she was left and how much time has passed, the court is moving toward terminating parental rights." Liam's heart thudded. "What does that mean for her?" he asked. "It means," Maggie said, "she'll be legally free for adoption down the line. But that process usually takes another 18 to 24 months. In the meantime, she needs a long-term foster home somewhere stable, somewhere she can put down roots while we finish the legal work." She opened the folder. "I've reviewed your application. Your background check is clean. Your home study was one of the strongest I've seen. Your references, well, if half of what they say about you is true, you're a better man than most." Liam let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. "So?" he managed. "So," Maggie said, her eyes softening, "I'm recommending that Grace be placed in your home as her primary foster placement, with the goal of adoption if and when the court allows it. There will be regular check-ins, unannounced visits, and you need to understand. Nothing is guaranteed until a judge signs the final order. But if you're willing, she can come home." For a moment, the room blurred. "Yes," he said, his voice breaking. "Yes. Whatever it takes. We're ready." Maggie smiled in a way that made her look 10 years younger. "I believe you are," she said. "And for what it's worth, so is she." Grace came home on a mild day in early May. Spring had wrapped Willow Creek in green again. Trees stood in full bloom, flowers bursting through the soil, as if the world itself refused to stay dead. Lily had spent all morning arranging stuffed animals on the shelf in the nursery. She'd taped a crooked but enthusiastic "Welcome Home Grace" banner above the crib. When Maggie walked in carrying Grace on her hip, Liam felt the world tilt. "Hi, Grace," he whispered, taking her into his arms. "Welcome home. This is your room, your house, your sister. This is your family." Grace studied his face for a long moment. Then she broke into a wide, drooly grin and reached for his nose. "Da-da," she babbled. It wasn't a real word yet, just a sound. But it might as well have been a lightning bolt. Lily bounced beside him. "Can I show her room? Please, please?" They spent the day settling in. There were diapers and bottles and naps that didn't last long enough. There was Lily reading picture books while Grace batted her small hands at the pages. There was laughter that filled corners of the house that had been too quiet for too long. That night, after both girls were finally asleep, Lily snoring gently in her room and Grace sprawled in her crib, one chubby fist clutching a stuffed bunny. Liam leaned in the nursery doorway and just watched. She looked so different now from the fragile bundle in the ditch. Warm, safe, home. "We made it," he whispered softly. "You're home, Gracie." The next year and a half were not easy. There were nights when Grace screamed for hours, inconsolable, for reasons no one could explain. There were ear infections, court dates that were postponed 3 times, surprise home visits where Liam nervously straightened couch cushions while Maggie peeked into closets. There were forms. So many forms. There were moments of fear every time his phone buzzed with an unknown number. A small knot in his stomach, wondering if some long-lost relative had decided to claim her. But there was joy too, more than he'd imagined. Grace's first steps, taken towards Lily, who crouched on the rug with her arms open. Her first real word, "E-E," for Lily, who cried when she heard it. The way Grace's whole face lit up when Liam walked through the front door at the end of the day. The house, once echo-quiet, became a constant chaos of toys and crayons and music and giggles. Neighbors brought casseroles. The ladies down the street organized a baby shower months after she arrived, deciding, better late than never. Liam's boss let him shift his hours when court hearings popped up. The town made room for this patched-together family that didn't fit the classic picture, but was undeniably real. In December of 2025, 2 years after the morning Liam had heard that cry on Pine Hollow Road, Maggie came by one more time with a different look in her eye. "The court has officially terminated parental rights," she said. "No one came forward. No appeals were filed. Grace is legally free for adoption now." Liam's hands shook on the coffee mug. "And," Maggie smiled, "and the court date to finalize her adoption is set for December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas. I was hoping you'd like that." The courthouse was decked out in garlands and red bows the day of the hearing. Liam wore the only suit he owned. Lily, now 10, wore a deep red dress and clutched Grace's small hand as they walked through the metal detectors. Grace wore a white dress Lily had picked out herself, her curls tamed with bows that didn't stand a chance of staying straight. The courtroom was full. Maggie sat in the front row, beaming. Liam's boss and a couple of co-workers had taken the morning off to be there. Joanna, the foster mother who had cared for Grace in those early months, sat near the aisle, tissues already in hand. Neighbors filled the seats, along with Lily's teacher, who had insisted on coming. Judge Whittaker looked like someone who didn't smile often. But when she glanced between Liam and the file on her desk, something softened in her expression. "Mr. Hart," she began, "I've reviewed the documents before me. 2 years ago, on a freezing Christmas Eve, you found an infant left alone on the side of the road with a note that said no one wanted her." She looked down at Grace, who sat on Liam's knee, chewing on the corner of a stuffed bunny. "You chose to stop," the judge continued, "and you didn't stop there. You've spent the last 2 years proving that one note was wrong." She flipped a page. "Grace is thriving," she said. "Physically, emotionally, developmentally. She's bonded strongly with you and with your daughter, Lily. By every measure, she is safe and loved in your home." The judge looked directly at Liam. "It is the finding of this court that this adoption is in the best interest of the child," she said. "From this day forward, her legal name will be Grace Margaret Hart. She is your daughter in every way under the law." Her gavel came down with a sharp tap. "Congratulations," Judge Whittaker said, and this time her smile was unmistakable. "She is officially and permanently yours." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Lily threw her arms around Grace and Liam at the same time, tears streaming down her face. "We did it, Daddy," she sobbed. "She's really ours." Grace didn't fully understand, but she clapped her hands and laughed, caught up in the joy swirling around her. "Dada! Lily!" she squealed. "That's right," Liam whispered into her hair, holding both girls as tightly as he dared. "I'm your dad, she's your sister, and we're your family forever. No more notes, no more questions, just us." The courtroom erupted into applause. Maggie cried openly now, dabbing at her eyes. Joanna snapped photos. Neighbors cheered. It felt less like a legal proceeding and more like a birthday, or maybe a resurrection. That night, they sat around the Christmas tree. It was Christmas Eve again. The lights glowed softly. 3 stockings hung on the mantel. Dad, Lily, and in neat red stitching, Grace. Gifts were piled under the tree. Christmas music played low in the background. The smell of cinnamon and sugar still lingered in the air. Liam sat between his daughters on the couch, each one leaning into his side. "Daddy?" Lily asked. "Do you think Grace will remember any of this when she's older? How you found her?" Liam looked at Grace, who was busy trying to put a ribbon in her mouth. "She probably won't remember that morning on the road," he said, "but she'll know about it, because we'll tell her, over and over, about the night a baby was left in the cold and found her way into our family." "She needs to know," Lily said firmly. "She needs to know that even when her first mom didn't want her, we did, that we chose her, that we fought for her." "She'll know," Liam promised. "She already does, and she'll never, ever have to wonder if she's wanted again." Later, after Grace had finally fallen asleep in her small bed, still clutching her stuffed bunny, and Lily had drifted off in her own room, Liam stood alone at the window. Snow drifted down in slow, lazy flakes, just like it had 2 years ago. He thought about all the cars that must have driven past that stretch of road before he did. Radios loud, minds busy, lives full. He thought about how easy it would have been to do the same. To assume that noise in the dark was nothing important. To stay in his lane, literally and figuratively. He thought about one choice, one moment of listening, one decision to stop. His phone buzzed. A text from Maggie. "Merry Christmas to the Hart family. Grace's first Christmas as a Hart. I'm so proud of all of you." He smiled, thumbs hovering over the screen. "Thank you," he wrote back, "for not giving up on us, for seeing something here worth fighting for." Her reply came almost instantly. "You did the hard work, Liam. All I did was recognize what was already there, a man who was meant to be that little girl's father." Liam glanced at the mantel. 3 stockings, 3 lives that 2 years ago had been drifting in different directions, now woven tightly together into something messy and loud and beautiful. Tomorrow there would be presents and photos and sugar highs. There would be calls to his parents in another state, who had embraced Grace as their granddaughter from the moment they saw her on a grainy video call. There would be toy instructions that made no sense, and batteries that died by noon. But tonight, he just stood in the quiet and let gratitude settle over him like the snowfall outside. 2 years ago, someone had written "Unwanted" on the back of a gas station receipt and left a baby in the dark. Tonight, that same baby slept in a warm room, her name embroidered on a stocking, her place in this family sealed by law and by love. Grace Margaret Hart was not unwanted. She was chosen, she was fought for, she was home. And one man's decision to stop on the side of the road on a cold Christmas Eve had changed all of their lives forever.